I want to talk a little bit about another nuance that sort of separates the assessment industry and typical assessment tests from a big data solution like PEGD. In the assessment industry and for most assessment tools, you're not trying to develop a predictive algorithm or predictive model. In other words, the goal is not to predict a particular measure. The goal is to find people who look like your best employees or find people that look like some ideal that you've set forward. With a big data tool like PEGD, we're getting to objective measures. So when we talk about looking at what successful employees look like and their characteristics, we're looking at specific measures. You know, how do individuals impact HCAP scores? What is the turnover like? What is their tenure like? What has their employment history been? What has their performance been like? So we're gathering purely objective data from our client systems, and that's what we're modeling all this data that we gather about applicants against. So it's a sort of nuanced distinction, but it's an important one because it's sort of like that old maxim, you have to start out with the end in mind, you know, begin with the end in mind. Well, that's the approach that PEGD is taking. So we're saying, you know, what is it that we're trying to impact at the organizational level? Are we trying to improve HCAP scores? Yes. So that's got to be one of the success measures that we're looking at. Are we trying to reduce turnover? Yes. So that's got to be one of the objective success measures that we look at. And that's how PEGD models success. If you're using a typical assessment tool, it would be an interesting question to ask, you know, what are we trying to predict? And most of the time the answer is we're not trying to predict a particular objective measure. We're trying to predict whether this person is going to look like a successful employee or not. And that may not be exactly what we need from an organizational perspective.